So, hi everyone. Welcome to the second part of the episode on demystifying rural marketing. I'm Harpreet, and I have Vikesh as my co-host. I will quickly request Sanjay ji and Ranjan ji to introduce himself.
Hi, I'm Sanjay Kaul, and I'm a practicing rural marketer for almost 3 decades.
Right. Thank you.
Hi, I am Ranjan Chaudhary, and I'm Professor of Marketing with Indian Institute of Management, Ranchi.
Great. Thank you so much. So, in the previous part of this episode, we looked at what is rural India as of today. So we looked at how rural India has evolved over the ages. There was a great presentation by Professor Chaudhary wherein he helped us bust certain myths around rural marketing or rural India as such. Now coming back to the discussion, we'll carry forward the discussion. In the previous part, I had asked 2 questions and I will request Sanjay ji to answer those questions. So the first question is, I'll repeat the question. We looked at a very positive side of rural India, right? We looked at the consumption is really good. We looked at the farmers are really doing good. We looked at the personal consumption expenditure has increased or doubled in most of the cases. And we also looked at that 60% of India's population is sitting in rural India. Now, combine this with the news which keep pouring in from all sides when we hear such cases, that certain farmers have committed suicide or they don't have even money to pay for their essentials. In that kind of scenario, my first question is, in that kind of scenario, is that the reality? That is one. Second thing which I would want Sanjay ji to address is that there are certain lifestyle brands which do not hold relevance in rural India. So for example, it could be an apparel brand, it could be a cosmetic brand, it could be a brand like Kangaroo, wherein they are office supply brand. So for example, we manufacture staplers and punches. So those brands also, do you see there is a future there? So these are the 2 questions I would like you to address, Sanjay ji, and along with that, enlighten us with some case studies as to how brands have worked around this entire market.
Thank you, Harpreet. So very relevant questions, and we always talk about the one brighter side of rural. So I also have a common quote that we should not paint rural as with one brush. It's not all rosy, but it's not all gloomy. Now, when we are talking of 97% mobile penetration, there's a fact. That means 97% of the people over there are connected with the rest of the world. Now, when we are talking of rising income, now you have 52 important rural commodities. And you have seen past 2 decades, there has been a growth of 200 to 2,000%. So when we talk about that, so there is some money which is already there. It's a very, very controversial subject when we talk about MSP. So, but it has increased the income. When we talk about Manrega, we talk about Rural Livelihood Program, Awas Yojana, Gramin Sadak Yojana. Now, this has pulled up a lot of people from above the poverty line. But if we assume today that everything is hunky-dory and everyone is population is in a middle class range or in a better situation, that's not true. But largely there is a substantial percentage which is now aspiring, which have a better income. And why do we talk about rural? When we say in the urban context, we still have a lot of struggling population who still live in these what we call in I forget the name, typical name, jo clusters per hai. So they also are not having that kind of lifestyle, but there is a disparity.
Slum area.
Yeah, slum clusters. So you have that set of population still residing over there. The second question you asked me is the relevance of certain brands, or is it important? And Professor Chaudhary was talking about district level micro marketing. One, it's very, very important. What the today new age marketers are doing. They are prioritizing these markets. So what they do, economic indicators, price mapping to identify high potential clusters. The startup I am running right now, we also have identified that 20% of the entire village ecosystem, that means around one are high throughput. They contribute almost 80% of the FMCG business. Now, it doesn't make sense for me to go to all 6 lakh villages. If I'm good at those 1.5 lakh villages, I'm broadly done my job. So similarly, for those kind of brands, there are affluent pockets within rural. So only what you need today, you have an advertising, you have of getting a position. Earlier when we talked about the research, it was more of on a qualitative side of the research. One guy going and deciphering the you would be able to decipher the lifestyle, you will be able to decipher what they are transacting on this. And Jio has really revolutionized when we talk about the telecom penetration. So it's possible for us to capture the right data, and then there are affluent pockets within rural. And you have upper middle class. 23% of the upper middle portion of the Indian middle class, upper middle class lies in rural. So those kind of pockets are definitely relevant places for these flagship brands.
Right. So if I were to understand, so you are saying that the gloomy, it's both gloomy and rosy, but then that is how even urban market is, right? So we have pockets which are really affluent, and then there are pockets where they're not so affluent or economically weaker section of the society resides. So the opportunity is similar. The second thing which you said is about relevance.
And Harpreet, just to intervene, government is spending continuously. If you look at rural budget outlays, year on year for past 2 decades, it has been increasing. So that will essentially, all these government spends are going to uplift these people year on year.
Right. See, basically everything boils down to the consumption expenditure, right? There are 2 things. One is the consumption. One is, I mean, as marketeers, what are we interested in? We are interested in that people should consume. So 2 things which are important. One is the willingness to spend, and the other is the capability to spend. So the entire economics, what we have looked at till now, is addressing the capability to spend. And when we were looking at the 4 A's, whether it is affordability, accessibility, or awareness, that is going to help towards the willingness to spend. So when we do the marketing, whether it is RPM or RRM or RBM or RIM, it is towards building the willingness to spend. And like you said, addressing the affluent pockets in rural market, that is where the capability to spend lies. So great.
So prioritization. When I said that each marketer has to prioritize the market, so where to go. It would be a wishful thinking for most of the companies. It could be even Unilever of the world, when those who rode this bandwagon very early. Today, they are 50% of the contribution to their revenues come from rural, whether it's Unilever, Hero MotoCorp, or Maruti. So 50% of the revenues come from rural, but they have rode this bandwagon very early. But today, those who want to foray into rural have to go through a prioritization route. And again, that depends upon the kind of the investment you want. Rural is not something which you just we had a founding president at RMA who always used to say that you don't flirt with rural marketing. You need to get married with the vision. So you cannot just think that I want to go into rural, just try and come out. So you need to remain invested in rural.
Great. So it will be very great if you can give us few case studies or examples from FMCG, from different industries which you have worked from, whether it is automobile or whether it is FMCG, how these brands have done this, or how they have made use of this great opportunity which is sitting in India. And then probably, like you said, that there are few out of this entire examples which you will quote, and that I will ask you at the end to conclude and give few tips as to a brand if it wants to foray into the rural market. So what would be the strategy?
So Harpreet, I have traversed a journey from wherein we had to educate people, please go rural. So, and we, like Professor demonstrate today a lot of stats and telling them it's 74% of India, it's so much of population, it's so much of number. and please go rural. And then now we are at a stage where we are telling them how to. So today brands are conscious that this is a market which they cannot ignore. Now, if you ask me specifically, the turning point was Lehman Brothers, recession, 2008. The only market which was insulated, if India got saved in that time, was rural markets, because it was a very distant market. It had its own consumption patterns, and that was a time when FMCG growth was in urban was 6% and rural was 22%. So when we talk about that kind of a differentiation, I think that's where it got
Highlighted.
India got
It
saved.
got highlighted.
I think that, yeah. So because of rural markets insulated India, and I think that's where everybody realized that we needed to remain invested in the rural space, and that's where companies and marketers started aggressively pursuing the rural marketing cause. Now, if you talk about the brands who have gone very early, they use all the marketing techniques which Professor dwelled upon. But now what is happening? It's changing so fast. What most of the marketers would have not imagined a few years back. Today, gone are the days when we do man marketing. Okay, so because the cost of acquisition of a consumer or reaching there is very, very high. They are looking at more smart, lean means to go there. Now, if we are doing a project for PNG, so which is just generating trials. Okay, so if I do 1 crore trials, and there's a possibility I might convert a substantial number of consumers, or and in parallelly, we also are doing an educational program in school on menstrual health. So if you combine your go-to-market strategy both with the education and trial, I think that's going to work. I remember once doing a promotion for a fortified biscuit, and because it was not placed, it's not available, while it did resonate with the audience that it's good to have a fortified biscuit, but some other brand which was available, they took that glucose brand. So it's very, very important, once you create a buzz and you create a pull, your brand needs to be available. So that according to me, the major challenge remains availability of the product there.
Just
we are
one
doing
second,
a project
Sanjay.
for
Just 1 second, Sanjay. That's a very important thing which you said. It is creating that market. The major difference between rural and Indian and the urban is that you need to create that market. So you gave example of menstrual health, right? Or the earlier example of the fortified biscuit. You first need to educate. I mean, that's something additional which you need to do. So obviously the 4 P's need to be taken care of. The price needs to be sensitive, the product needs to be there, it needs to be placed, and the promotion. Other than this, you need to educate the consumer that, why do you need this? You have this problem. So first you need to make them aware that you have this problem. So they first need to understand that, yes, they need to admit that, yes, I have a problem. So first they need to be made aware that you have this problem. Now to solve this problem, this is what I'm bringing. So this step is, I think, extra, which comes to a difference between the rural and urban sector.
So I think you need in rural, yes, you need to do in tandem. So you can't only educate, not then have product available there. That's right. One. Number two, if you have a new category available there, don't leave it to the consumer to explore. But then your possibility of converting that consumer would be, honestly speaking, very, very low. The gestation could be higher. So though we did a project for recruitment cancer, which is called Vriddhi. In Vriddhi, what we do, we actually open up markets for them beyond their current coverage. Suppose their sub-D network is reaching up to certain limit, and then beyond that, we are trying to create market for their products. And we are doing this project for the last 4 years. We are contributing to around 200 crore plus top line for them in certain set of villages. Now, wheat as a product was the least selling SKU in rural. So because of the regular placement and regular, the guy delivering at a doorstep, today it's the third highest selling SKU for them in the rural markets. And we were ourselves very, very amazed.
The wheat hair
Number
removal?
three,
The wheat hair
yes,
removal?
yes.
Okay.
Yes. So we were ourselves surprised. We had McVitie's coming to us and telling us, please try these digestive biscuits. And unlike anyone, I was also very pessimistic whether this will sell or not sell. Today, top 10 categories is selling, and people buy digestive biscuits. So there is also willingness to explore new categories. That's one. But I would advise as a marketer, it's very, very important if you can create a buzz around it and create a pull around it to the promotional activities or, BTL initiatives, then the possibility of acquiring these new consumers much, much higher. And today the foray is, again, I would not say it's a low-hanging fruit for most of the companies. There are deterrents, when you talk about entering rural markets. What are the deterrents? Cost of reach, logistics, then dispersed demand, long distances. So now there are new ways of doing it. One is the traditional way what Unilever tried to do. They created Shakti Amas and Shaktimans, and they did it very early in the day. So, but please understand, they have a large portfolio. Now, what does Medimix do when they have only 2 SKUs or 3 SKUs to sell? They have soap, face wash, and something else. So for those kind of companies, it is always challenging. So today it's possible to do and piggy ride an aggregator, and probably that could be a new solution. So today it's possible. So you look at the innovative ways of doing distribution today, how is possible.
So
and
these
companies are
aggregators,
also willing to.
right. Sorry to interject there. So these aggregators, Sanjay, I think that's an important thing which you said, that the cost of reach is a challenge, accessibility is a challenge. Fine. So you need deeper pockets, right? You need deeper pockets to sample, you need deeper
Exactly.
pockets to educate, you need deeper pockets to create awareness, and then obviously there are logistics issues. So these aggregators, can you talk more about these?
Okay, you're interesting. You're talking to one. So at LMC, so we are a B2B tech aggregator company. We are around 40 already onboarded with us. It's completely tech enabled. So their visibility today, if you look at most of the companies, they have zero visibility on secondary, where it goes. Beyond wholesale, they have no visibility. So we have real-time access to data. That's number one. Number two, cost of reach, we don't charge them money. We ask them for pay for performance. That means a set of a commission. If your cost, your acquisition cost, if you put your own manpower, or this cost reach is very, very high, but you use a shared resource. So who would actually sell 6 to 7 products of 6 to 7 companies? That becomes a very, very focused workforce for you. Then on top of it, the entire logistics banks are not there for you, because finding a micro distributor, it becomes viable for him to work with us, because we give them 25-30 companies business. It's not tomorrow if a company goes individually, he won't even survive. So or 2 companies go there, so we give them 40 companies business. Even if the offtake is smaller in quantities, but if you see in aggregation, it becomes both win-win for the entrepreneur sitting out there, then the retailer who has access to the good products, and companies who can piggy ride this highway and go rural. So then it's a plug and play kind of a model. You can do it in the jiffy. And we also have a very, very high level tech which also geofences these territories, so that cannibalization overlap on their existing market. That's number one. There's a very, very intelligent data which is pouring in, and intelligent inferences. And you can also have a very surgical approach in terms of where to intervene. As Professor was saying, India is, you have many Indias in India. Now, suppose a particular SKU is doing well in a particular particular territory and not doing well in a particular territory. So then even the BTL approach will be very, very surgical. So it will be, then your, overspend would not be there. It will be very, very meaningful spending, in that territory only. There's no spillover if you talk about aggregation. And there are many players now in this. So, and there is space for more. And you have some of the aggregators who have become unicorns now.
Great. So these aggregators, they work directly with the feeder market distributor, or they work directly with the brands?
They work directly with the brands. So we work with the brands directly, bring them on
board,
or sign up with them, bring them on board, and then they have to. So I will just give an example. Between UP and Bihar, we have 400 plus micro distributors. We have around 170 odd. So right now a human tech endeavor. Ultimately, we want them to self-order. So the vision is basically, now look at the tech usage. We are also training and empowering the retailers to use that application. We are right now training them how to self-order.
But
so you can actually convert this whole thing into e-commerce.
Right. So I was going to come to that. So these aggregators, don't they find a competition from Amazon and Flipkart, who have reached to almost every nook and corner of the country?
So now if you look at this FMCG, you have almost, if I look at 60%, so you have around 85 lakh retail outlets, Kirana stores. There's a corner store of the entire retail economy in the in rural. So their access is still at a suburban, semi-urban kind of class A, tier 1, tier 2 kind of towns, not very deep rural pockets.
So there is where the aggregators. So there is where the
these aggregators in future can become their fulfillment partners.
Yes.
So one of my friend who is an aggregator, he actually is a fulfillment partner for Amazon.
Great. So I would like you to give some tips so to brands who would want to foray. So one thing which you said is innovatively thinking. The other thing is, so there are brands who want to go into this market, but who don't have deeper pockets, whether it is for sampling or whether it is for educating the consumers. So any idea or any suggestions for those brands?
See, first of all, you have to understand whether your brand is relevant for rural or not. That's part one. So number two, I don't think they need any lectures. Once people start deciding that we need to go to rural, I think companies at their own level are doing priority in terms of what kind of SKU is going to work in rural in a price point of 5, 10 kind of a thing. And there are examples where your high value SKUs are also selling. So that's part one. Part two, the tips for them would be essentially you need to invest more on educating. So education cannot be done by any partner or this thing. I think companies should outsource distribution, not companies, offering. They have to focus there and then rather create a pull and then outsource it to somebody who can push the product. So I think pushing that product is very, very important. If you give it to a third party, there are practitioners. One of my other company is into rural marketing. So we help companies to promote their brands in rural. But selling is ultimately, your brand has to be available on the shelf and floor space. So for that, I think that which is a major challenge. And now rural also, most of the companies who have already who believe that we are well served or well distributed. Believe me, we did research on 135 companies, and many top companies are not even directly present. Their sales is driven by the wholesale. Now there lies the challenge. Now, what challenge is your entire line sale doesn't happen. So if you have a portfolio of 20 lines and only 3 top selling lines. When we took up RB mandate, it's not that Dettol was not present or Mortein was not present. It was always there. But then Harpic, Wheat, Vicks, so they also got traction in their line sales. So it's very, very important. Then direct distribution becomes very, very important. If you look at and your dependence on wholesale, the only top selling SKUs will be driven, but not your entire portfolio. For your entire portfolio, you need to have additional efforts in terms of the distribution.
See, that bit,
so
that
number
bit,
two,
that bit I was saying, Sanjay ji, is applicable even for urban pockets, right? Through your wholesale or indirect distribution, your assortment selling will never happen. It will be only 1, 2 or the fastest selling SKUs. So whether it is rural or it is urban, I mean that logic is applicable for urban.
Urban is true,
right?
But then in urban, even the retailer has a capacity to keep a lot of SKUs. Maybe they will keep some of them in the minimal quantities and some there in abundant quantities. But if you look at a rural scenario, who goes with 10,000 or 20,000 rupees money to a wholesale market, he prioritizes his buying. He knows, he has made up his mind what I have to buy, and there he doesn't do any alterations, or if he even is willing or sees a new product, he doesn't test on that. But if you are able to deliver it at the doorstep in smaller quantities, the possibility is then you can get a better traction, because you don't have a same spending capacity or buying capacity as the urban counterpart.
Plus you don't have many options also, right? So for example, in urban, if I don't get anything in my nearby shop, and if I've seen it on TVC, I'll go to some other shop. But in rural, such shops are also limited. So as a consumer, the shops are also limited. So it is not that I can go and buy Lux and maybe in the next shop I'll get Dove. So that is also there.
No, but let me tell you, Harpreet, this is going to change. A lot of people assume that we have advantage of early entry, and we have that. Definitely they have an early entry, but now rural is also, consumer is also spoiled. So as more and more brands will foray, so on one side, for a new entrant, for him everything is a 100% acquisition, but they are going to chip away a share of the established players. So it's very, very important for the established players also to retain that their mind space, and remain remain in touch with the consumer there, not to forget that they are always my loyal customers.
Right.
Because once more and more variety comes in, so they are spoiled for choices.
Great. So I think those were very interesting inputs. Vikesh, you would like to add anything?
Sorry, I was on mute. No, a very insightful, set of thoughts from both our experts. I don't think I have anything to add, because I, honestly speaking, I haven't worked much in the rural market. Though in my publishing role, I have traveled to remote parts of India. Sometimes some such semi-urban territories as well. But those largely have been academic institutions where I was promoting books and digital solutions. So, but this was very, very insightful, very, very useful, and I think I've got a lot to process. Perhaps I'll reach out to you separately, with any questions that I may have at a later point in time.
Sure. I think I echo what Vikesh said. Even this was insightful for me, because even I have not done anything in rural India. But I would like to conclude the discussion on one line, and those are my concluding remarks. Is the line with which we started the discussion. The future of India lies in the villages. The future of India lies in villages, by Mahatma Gandhi. So there is so much to explore.
Thank you, Harpreet and Vikesh, for this wonderful session. I think, as I understand, many of people who would be listening to this or watching this on their screens would be students and would be future leaders, would be captaining the cause for marketing in India and in rural India. So I think the market, as I mentioned, they're already in the state of transformation. And there is one very important aspect that, as a teacher in marketing, that I see, that businesses in developing countries, including India, the places that have traveled far and wide, they have realized that serving rural markets is not about simply selling a product. They have expanded the nature of their business from mere commercial motives to social ones as well. So when we talked about the social, environmental, financial, or the triple bottom lines, I think moving from that, they have moved to more of a sustainable, balanced scorecard where they not only look at the financial performance, like annual reports, profitability, growth, or financial ratios, they're also looking at how much learning and development for them has happened in the rural markets, and can they translate that in the urban markets as well, with reference to the new products that they have launched, with reference to some of the R&D initiatives that they're taking in rural India, whether they can replicate that in urban India as well, on a reverse engineering basis. Whatever training their employees had in the rural market, how much they actually amount to in terms of value addition for them when they move from the rural stream to urban India. How they look at the entire internal processes, the production, the inventory management, the supply chain management in terms of their rural initiatives, how they look at their social performance as a company in terms of what kind of community actions they have taken in the villages, what kind of village problems they have been able to solve, not only selling the products, but involvement of the people, involvement of all stakeholders, what kind of customers they have been able to reach in terms of the market share, in terms of the new customers, in terms of the loyalty, even in terms of the rejection rates also. Not all customers would accept you as a company. And also in terms of the environmental performance, in terms of the energy resources used per unit, in terms of the emission control, in terms of the carbon footprint, in terms of the effect on upstream and downstream communities. I think these are extremely important as we look forward to build our future in the rural market. So micro markets, as I mentioned in my earlier session, developing the optimal micro market size, determining the growth potential, gauging the market share, understanding the causes of variation in the market share, and then prioritizing which market should we focus on. So the future of the rural market, to me, Harpreet and Vikesh and Sanjay ji, I think after these two sessions looks extremely bright, and the business can only succeed if we go beyond the mandate of making profits. So the future rests on these three paradigms that the shift is happening in rural India post-pandemic. Of course, one is innovation, one is the transformation of companies into more and more social enterprises, and the technological advancements that are bringing rural consumers much closer to the companies. So thank you once again, Harpreet and Vikesh ji, for this wonderful session. And personally, as both of you said, I have also enlightened myself with the case studies and the anecdotes and the personal experiences of Mr. Kaur and both of you from this session. Thank you very much.
Excellent. I would just like to chip in and make one point, adding to what you said, Professor Chaudhary. I would love to see, another set of startups coming from the rural markets. We've seen Amul's fantastic example, in the past.
Or Lijjat Papad.
Lijjat Papad, yes. So if we could, possibly, with all the initiatives that you mentioned, if businesses could invest appropriately in guiding, people in creating those, creating, a more enabling atmosphere and environment, in the rural markets, perhaps, we would see a new wave of startup founders coming from rural India as well. So yeah, that's the only one comment I wanted to make.
I wanted to add what Professor Chaudhary said. One thing which I really liked, which is the social impact of the brands. I mean, in urban areas, we don't see that. So, for example, the examples which we looked at, whether it is controlling the population, or whether it is ensuring the hygiene of hands, or whether it is menstrual hygiene, the social impact, which is in a country like India, which is developing, and that is where Modi ji's vision is also there, wherein he wants that country should become developed in next by 2030. That is what he said this Independence Day. So for the entire strata to come up, brands have this social responsibility also. So I think in rural India, there that social responsibility is also at display. And whether it is through Shakti Amma, wherein you are empowering the women of the village, or whether it is empowering the girl child, or whether it is empowering the males or the weaker section of the society, that is where the entire upliftment. So it is like giving back to the society. So I think,
taking your point forward, I think as compared to urban, it's more in rural. So we are doing a project with GSK now gone to Unilever. It's called Horlicks Swasth Abhiyan. Now there we don't tom about uh, selling Horlicks. It's more about building nutrition awareness with the community and piggy riding that goodwill, then the product sells off its own. That's number one. Number two, if you look at a lot of CSR money, it is going into rural. Now, if you look at a lot of brand affection, which many of the companies are creating in rural, is through this social impact, initiatives. And there are a lot of you would hear a lot of. I think personally, I have been involved with not less than 50, 60 such projects. So most of the companies not only making ultimate goal is to make profit. You can't get into philanthropy unless you have paid money. But a lot of people take that social awareness or social development route to propagate their products there. So it's very 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 prevalent. I think more than urban markets.
Great. I think I would like to conclude the discussion. It was one by far, I don't know about Vikesh, by far one of the most enlightening session for me personally, because this is something which was gray area till now. But
Me as well, yeah. Yeah.
great. So because we as practitioners, we talk about brands, we talk about brand positioning, brand equity, advertising, building the brand proposition. But here is a cause where we are working for the society, and I think that is where we should all be striving for ultimately as human beings.
Wonderful.
Sure. Thank you
Yes,
so
yes.
much.
Thank you so much.
Thanks a lot. Thank you so much.
Thank you for watching part 2 of the 11th episode on rural marketing. In this particular episode, we continued the discussion from part 1 and we looked at live case examples, case studies on how different brands have done a marvelous job in rural marketing. I hope you like the content. If you like it, do like, share, and comment, and stay tuned with us on Marketing Demystified. Thanks.